All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the biology, the actual data, and the non-negotiable safety rules of infant sleep. Today, we're totally stripping away the myths and looking directly at the science of what is actually happening in a newborn's brain. But first, I want to start by just validating the pure, unadulterated exhaustion you might be feeling right now. If it feels like your newborn never sleeps or, only sleeps when they're being held, I promise you are not alone. Frequent waking is incredibly common in those early weeks and months, and it is absolutely not a failure on your part. You haven't done anything wrong. In fact, as we're about to see, this frequent waking is a deeply ingrained biological survival mechanism. So let's get into Section 1, the fourth trimester and its biological realities. Here's the thing. Newborns are still actively developing their nervous systems, their digestion, and their circadian rhythms entirely outside the womb. Think about it for a second. For 9 months, they were in this dark, warm environment with constant nourishment and the incredibly soothing sound of a heartbeat. And then suddenly, they're in a bright, loud, cold world where they actually have to digest their own food and breathe their own air. It's a huge shock. So they rely heavily on you, their caregiver, to help them regulate their physical and emotional states. That means early sleep is driven purely by biological needs, definitely not rigid routines. They wake up because they're hungry and growing at an insanely rapid pace. They wake because their tiny, immature digestive systems are just working overtime. And fundamentally, they wake up because they need your closeness to feel safe. This isn't them being manipulative, it's literally just biology. Moving on to Section 2, the science of baby sleep, and the hidden work happening beneath the surface. To us, a sleeping baby looks super peaceful and inactive, right? But beneath the surface, their bodies are basically running a marathon of development. Every single time your baby closes their eyes, they are literally growing and wiring their brain to process this completely new outside world. The data shows that while they sleep, their brain is incredibly busy making new neural connections. And at the exact same time, the pituitary gland at the base of their brain is pumping vital growth hormones, their tiny bodies redirecting blood flow to developing muscles and actively producing white blood cells to build up a brand new immune system. It's really amazing. To understand exactly how they accomplish all this, we have to contrast the two very different phases that make up a newborn's rest. Because unlike adults who have multiple stages of sleep, newborns primarily just toggle between two states. First is active sleep, which is fairly similar to adult REM sleep. During this phase, you might see their eyes darting around under their eyelids, their body twitching, and they might even make little grunts or cries. Honestly, sometimes they sound way more like a tiny dinosaur than a peaceful baby. Newborns actually spend a massive 50% of their sleep in this active phase. Because this increased blood flow to the brain boosts cognitive development, memory, and learning, it's absolutely essential for their developing intellect. But it also means they are resting very lightly and can wake up very, very easily. Conversely, we have quiet sleep. This is when the magic of physical restoration happens. During this phase, the baby is still, breathing deeply, and much, much harder to wake up. This is when tissue repair occurs and when those essential growth hormones we talked about are pumped into their system. Both of these phases are absolutely critical for a healthy, developing baby. All right, Section 3, cycles and schedules. Let's look at expectations versus reality. According to the data, 14 to 18 hours, averaging around 16, is the astonishing amount of time a newborn actually sleeps in a 24-hour period. That is a huge portion of the day. Now, I know it feels like they are constantly demanding your attention, but out of a 24-hour day, they're only awake for about 8 hours total. And that's usually broken up into tiny 45-minute to 1-hour windows of wakefulness. But here is the real kicker. Unlike our nice, long adult sleep cycles, baby sleep cycles are incredibly short. They fall asleep, spend time in that easily disturbed active sleep, dip briefly into quiet sleep, and then the cycle just abruptly ends. Right at that 45 to 60-minute mark, they experience a brief waking. If they're hungry or cold or they realize you aren't holding them anymore, they will fully wake up crying. This explains exactly why those coveted long stretches of sleep are just biologically rare early on. Oh, and keep in mind that for the first couple of months, your baby simply cannot tell the difference between noon and midnight. Their circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells us to be awake in the light and asleep in the dark, it doesn't even begin to develop until they are around 10 to 12 weeks old. So when your baby wants to party at 3 a.m., it's really not a behavioral issue. It's a complete lack of biological hardware. Okay, shifting gears a bit to Section 4, crucial safe sleep guidelines. These positional and location rules were designed by the American Academy of Pediatrics to prevent sudden, unexpected infant death, or SUID. Since the Back to Sleep campaign was launched in the 1990s, emphasizing that babies must always be placed on their backs, the rate of sleep-related infant deaths has dropped significantly. Furthermore, the baby absolutely must have their own sleep space. While room sharing is highly recommended for the first 6 months, bed sharing is not. The baby needs to be in a dedicated crib, a bassinet, or a portable play yard. A firm, flat surface is mandatory. Sofas and armchairs are incredibly dangerous for infant sleep due to the risk of wedging and suffocation. Plus, seating devices like swings, bouncers, or car seats, those are only for their intended use. A car seat is for riding in the car. It is never for routine, unsupervised sleep because a baby's heavy head can easily slump forward and constrict their airway. And you must keep the sleep space completely clear of all these soft items. I know, the marketing catalogs show cribs full of plush blankets, cute pillows, stuffed animals, and padded bumpers, but the evidence is crystal clear here. To maintain a safe, unobstructed breathing environment, the crib should contain nothing but a firm mattress, a fitted sheet, and the baby in a wearable sleep sack. That is it. Boring is safe. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Caring for the Caregiver. There's a brilliant Dutch phrase that translates roughly to, a sleeping baby equals rested parents. Your child's sleep is directly tied to your own alertness, mood, and physical recovery. When your baby isn't sleeping, you aren't sleeping. And chronic sleep deprivation has massive real-world impacts on your physical recovery postpartum, your mental health, and just your basic daily functioning. It is completely 100% valid to find this phase incredibly hard. This is exactly why building a support network is so critical. Whether that means bringing in a lactation consultant to help with feeding challenges that might be disrupting sleep, hiring a gentle sleep consultant who actually understands biological norms, or seeking mental health support to cope with this huge transition, reaching out means you are building a necessary team. It doesn't mean you're failing. Humans were simply not meant to raise infants in total isolation. You are doing the incredibly hard, often invisible work of helping a brand new human adapt to the world. You wouldn't expect your newborn to instantly know how to sleep perfectly, right? So why on earth would you expect yourself to have it all perfectly figured out? Lean on the science and follow the safety rules. But it leaves us with a larger question to ponder. As science continues to map the infant brain, what incredible, hidden developmental milestones will we discover next about how humans actually learn to sleep? Think about that tonight. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.